Let's begin right away. It's good to see Dave with us, Andrew Layton, Christy, Elad, and others that are joining us as we queue up and charge. I'm going to take this watch off so we don't have any noise. Go ahead and get that out of the studio. We had a technical problem. Our power went down, and then when we rebooted, Microsoft decided to update. So that's what we're up against at the last second here. In any event, I'm still ready to go, and I'm going to skip through a group of slides and take you to something intriguing. Take a look at results. This is results only. Now, if you're just tuning in, the paragraph underneath that table should capture your attention, and you should be thinking deeply after reading what you need to understand. This is the result of an experiment. There's a control and there's a treatment. There's a three-part path, reaching out into the channel and going forward to the presentation on the website and all the way to the call to action. Notice a 272% increase in conversion. That's wonderful, but that's not the point. Look afterwards. A 268% revenue increase combined with a corresponding 66% reduction in CPA. And more. A margin difference of 302%. That is 4 times the monthly profit. Everything I want to talk to you today is about the science beneath those gains and a completely new way to think about spending your money in marketing. Some of you work on a 12-month budget cycle, and it's very formal, it's very disciplined. If you're like most organizations, it's completely broken. More than that, you're scrabbling to get money, and it's a zero-sum game as you battle with someone else. Dan Burstein yesterday, our head editor, called it a knife fight between departments. Some of you are a small entrepreneurial group. You don't even think 12 months ahead. You're working on the next 3 months. But all of us are likely spending money in order to grow our organizations. And I don't care whether your budget's 12 months and involves a 12-man committee and involves $12 billion, or if it's a tiny company just getting started. I've seen this firsthand in some of the largest companies in the world. I've been in a Fortune 10 company where I oversaw the budget process during a research piece. They employed 17 agencies, hundreds of vendors, and their ad spend, now listen to me, their ad spend was $4.5 billion. And the dysfunction was shocking. At the same time, I've seen small entrepreneurs trying to copy large organizations and everyone getting it wrong. Here's the one thing I'm sure of. Most of us are wasting a lot of our money. We just don't know which percentage. We don't know what to do about it. And it's not in the classic sense that, oh, you bought the wrong media. We're buying media with money that we should be spending in a different way. We have inverted the rationale and thus confused ourselves. We don't know the difference between investment and expense, and we can't separate it in the way we design our budgets. We're fooling ourselves. And I'd like to go deeply today into something that can help you. Number one, capitalize on the holiday season. Number two, make the next 12-month cycle, perhaps you're on a fiscal budget, whatever it is, could be January through the end of next year, the most productive spend you've ever had. More importantly, if you're connecting with me right now and you don't have all the money you want, I've got good news. You don't need it. You don't need it. In fact, you probably could take the money you've already spent, spend it differently, and get a dramatic increase if you can think in a completely new way with me. Now, you hear me teach often about very specific pieces of psychology, but the psychology of the budget process is just as profound, not only in selling it through to superiors, but in keeping yourself from being confused by all the confusion that exists in the typical process. So I'm going to start drawing on the board, and I want to share with you an approach that produced 4 times the monthly profit on a funnel. And I want to share with you how we got there using a heuristic I've never taught on in public classes before, only privately through my own team and to my own team members. With that in mind, I'll go to the board and draw 2 lines. Last week I opened up with 2 lines just like this, but I'm doing something altogether different. This is geophilosophy. This is a sort of a combination between geography and philosophy, and I want to explain it to you like this. Here's a line that represents the standard approach, and here is another line. We're going to let these 2 lines illustrate problems that are critical for you to overcome. So if you're connecting with me right now, zero in on this line, and I'm going to put a letter here. I'm going to put a B here and an M here. I want you to imagine for just a moment that performance is mathematically equivalent to the length of these two lines combined. So there's lots of ways to illustrate how to cover that same distance. For instance, you could do way more of this and then have a shorter line this way. And frankly, this point right here is the point that I'm attacking in our thinking. If you're not sure what you're looking at, M stands for the more mindset. And if you get to the philosophy and even the physics of our approach to many things in life, we are often confused between more and better. So, some people in the constant lust for scale are constantly attracted to bigger, to more. And in doing so, they don't understand the tension, almost a paradoxical tension between better and more. You're sitting here right now with a need to drive more business. I imagine everyone here would like to drive more business. And so you've got a choice you can make right now. And I want to talk about what that choice is. You can do what most people do, which is drive more, or you can focus on becoming better. And in most of our budgets, we're always scrambling for more. In fact, the fastest way to grow our business is to dump more money in the ad spin. I want to show you why the entire process will inhibit you achieving maximum efficiency and thus profitability. And even in growth, you might say, well, I'm not about profit. I'm a startup and I just want to grow like Amazon did for years. Let me tell you, if they hadn't focused on better, more wouldn't have mattered. So we are talking conceptually now, but please, for just a moment, connect that back to the slide we looked at just a moment ago. Somebody did something different there. In fact, the cost per acquisition dropped 66%. Let's translate that into your world. What if you cut your budget by 66%, but you made 4 times the profit, and wait a second, and not at the expense of top-line growth, but instead, you achieved 268% more in revenue? How many would like to experience some version of those ratios in your marketing? Now, I'm going to oversimplify today, and if you're a mathematician, you may not like what I do next. But as I start to unfold this, I'm going to show you the math. I'm going to show you the philosophy. And then you can apply the philosophy, and you can apply the math/science to the psychology of your process. Indeed, I have a simple problem, and I'd like to illustrate that problem. Well, let's think about that. I have a lot of problems, and they're not so simple. But what I want to teach today is a simple problem. That is, if I can't have more, because how many of you want more, but you have limitations? Either you don't have an unlimited budget, or perhaps you control your company and the budget is as much money as you can get, but you still don't have all the money you want. Or how many of you are in a department where you have to fight for the budget? Either way, it seems like we never get enough. So let's assume for a moment that most of you can't have more in the sense as an infinite supply, and that you'd like to understand how focusing on better could achieve more than if you were to spend more. With all that in mind, I have a simple way we're going to attack this. I've got 3 thought movements, and in those movements, I'm going to explain and illustrate a new concept for you. Powerful new heuristic. And with that heuristic, I'm going to start to work backwards into a more profound rationale that should drive how you spend your money. Does that make sense to everybody? Robert, good to see you. And Dave Fogel's on the line. We all know that Dave has an infinite budget. If you don't have enough money, you can probably get some from Dave. He'll lend it to you at interest-free out of his vast wealth. Right, Dave? And if you need to, I'll give you Dave's home phone number and you can just call him directly and ask. In the meantime, Uh-oh, here comes the smart comments. Infinitely small, Dave says. That's an interesting oxymoron. That's not even an oxymoron. That's man, he sounds like Kierkegaard in reverse. All right. And I see Sean. We're doing some research with Sean right now. It's good to see you on here, Sean. All right. With this in mind, are you ready to learn these three pieces? Is everybody ready? Because we're gonna attack in order to get the most value out of the short time that we have together. This will be unlike anything I've ever taught here before. In fact, some of you are going to have to pay very close attention or the math's going to frustrate you. But I'm going to make the math eminently simple, at least in practice. I'm going to have to refer to my notes because I keep working on simplifying it over and over again. And on the surface, I'm not going to say anything that you're not aware of. But as you start to see its ratios and its impacts, then you'll see where the profundity is hiding. Before we get to that, I want to bring you to my first point. Watch on the screen. You may want to take notes on this. It's understanding the marketing prioritization heuristic. All right, so that's called the MPH, the marketing priority heuristic. And with that, I'm going to see if I can, I think, show you that first of all with a slide. I want to write this on the board. I wrote it. In fact, if you were to look at what happens before we teach, my whiteboards are covered. I was here all night for the last 2 nights in the lab just thinking. And we ran onto whiteboards. We made more. And as I teach to you right now, I'm looking at something. What I'm looking is an actual photograph of one of my whiteboards that Austin, he's over here on my right, Austin Spence, not McCraw. Austin McCraw is at Cambridge right now doing his doctorate. Those of you that are familiar with Austin, he came here right out of school, has been working with us for many years, and now on my senior leadership team, and he's a genius when it comes to value prop, and he's doing something connected to that in his research at Cambridge. And over here is Austin Spence, who's just out of prison and in the work release program. I'm kidding, and he's laughing for those of you that think I'm picking on him. And he's sitting next to Benaiah Wilson, and they've all helped me. But I'm going to be looking at this because I wrote this many times until I thought the simplest way to explain it to you. And you need to see it, but I can't go there yet. I'm going to take you to a slide. Here it is. Let's go all the way back to this slide right here. This is the MPH. This is the marketing performance heuristic. And I want to help you think about it in 2 ways. First of all, you'll see there are 3 symbols, PRD, FNN, and ADV. Just stay full screen for a little while, Cliff. You're doing good at going back and forth, but I want to dwell on this and let them see it. Now, ADV stands for advertising, FNN stands for funnel, PRD stands for your product. Notice there is a greater than sign between each of these. And it's trying to tell you something very simple that we have to illustrate mathematically before you can see its power. But it's really saying you're going to get a greater gain by focusing first on your product, and look above it, especially its value proposition. And there are 4 types of value propositions. Secondly, if you focus on your funnel, many of you are talking about web design projects. Don't use the word web design. Don't think web redesign. Don't even think web. It's not a page. It's a series of zeros and ones. I like to think of them as signals. These are signals that form a signal set, and the signal set is what your page should be. And if you hire an agency to build you a pretty page, you're going to miss the whole point. What you should be doing is arranging the signal sets on that page to stimulate something in the mind. And you don't even do that with a page until you do it with a funnel. I'll be talking about why we spend our money wrong on almost every web design project I've ever seen. So, the funnel. And then your advertising. We spend it worse here. And I'm going to talk about prioritizing your spend in a completely different way. Inverting it and moving in the opposite direction than most people move as they invest their money or as they waste it. And to do that, I want to point above that the first thing we're talking about is the value proposition, PRD. Then we're talking about the micro yeses. And the micro yeses form the funnel. Then we're talking about relationships, establishing new relationships. It's not advertising. It's not really a funnel. And in the end, people aren't buying a product. They're buying the resulting experience. So you've got to understand this in a different way in order to think about how to spend your money. Now, beneath that, there's another point. There are two things you want to focus on under each of these, and you should probably understand these better. In fact, in the infographic, we'll build you one. I want articulation to be first and sum beneath it. They are not one term. To get the value prop right, you have to get the exchange sum right. I'll explain that later. And then, even when you get the exchange sum right, you've got to get the articulation of that right. The essence of marketing is the message. The articulation is the message. If you don't get the message right, nothing else matters. The same thing goes for the micro yeses. Your funnel has a sequence that matches the sequence of thought that is most likely going to produce 4 conclusions in the mind that will get people to buy. And if you don't arrange your funnel to match the sequence, then it's a poor funnel and it will get mitigated results. If you get the sequence right, you have to get the message right on that sequence, on each step. That's the articulation. In your advertising, it's about selection. So think sum, sequence, and selection. To get the selection right, you have to pick the right medium and select the right things to emphasize, etc. And then you've got to get the message in the channel to match the messaging throughout the balance of the funnel in your web presentation and forward as they begin to understand the articulation or the message of your value proposition. Now, all of this ties together many concepts that I've been teaching for 20 plus years. And if you're new to this teaching, I want to assure you that the goal isn't to help you pass a test. The goal isn't to give you some abstract set of concepts. The goal is to help you see the financial results that I just outlined in the previous case study. In fact, stay with me, and I'm going to show you how we did that with real web pages, how we broke it down, transformed the thinking, and how it all worked together. This is about changing things in the world. If you're a marketer, and this is new to you, or you're one of those who's been part of our community for some time, may I stress to you that in the end, I want to do something meaningful with my life, and I assume you do also. And for that very reason, what we're learning now is going to help you spend your money to produce meaningful results. My next meeting, right after I step out of the studio, is with a mad scientist. That's the best way I can describe him. My friends around the world have called him the Thomas Edison of the 21st century. And I can't say any more except to say there's a way to use marketing to cure significant number of the diseases that are assailing the world. Again, I have to be very careful what I say beyond that. All I want you to know is, marketer, if you learn these things, you can use this like a martial art. You can use it for good. You can also use it to hurt people, but used right, it's incredible. Let's get to this logic. Let's move from my first point, which was simply to understand the prioritization heuristic. Roughly, you understand the 3 components: value prop, micro yeses, and relationship as exhibited or embodied by your product, your funnel, and your advertising. That one is about sum, one is about sequence, and one is about selection. And all of them are about the articulation or the message. That being said, I want to take you to this because here's what I want to show you to do today. Instead of spending, like most of us do, tons of money this way. Somebody check me out a new marker in case that's a problem. I got one coming. Let's check this one out. That was fast. These guys are armed and dangerous. All right, so watch again. Instead of spending this way and this way, I'm going to advocate that you spend like this. Less on the more and more on the better. Okay? This is the key to an amazing budget. This is the key to doing more with less. This is the key to transforming your results in 2020 or any year you're watching this video. With that in mind, you're going to have to learn how to apply that PRD, FNN, and by the way, this will not be one session. It'll probably take 2 or 3 to unpack this. But if you're literally trying to plan a way to scale your growth next year, this is the series that's designed to help you take advantage of our 20,000 plus experiments and learn from what we're learning as we interact in the field with thousands of different variations. And so I want to take you to the second point, which is optimize your spend for mathematical impact. So this is very critical because this has to do with the sequencing of your spend and the emphasis of your spend. Sequence it in just the opposite order. Just change when you buy. For instance, If the money you were going to spend in April is spent in February, that alone could create an order of magnitude in difference with regards to your ROI. You say it's the same amount of money at a different time of year. Yes, but the key is it's at a different time, which means it's at a different order, which means your results are going to be different. So let's get the order of the spend correct, as well as the essence or focus of the spend. To do that, I've got to start with some math. And I'm going to show you some things that most of you know, but we got a big challenge here. The world is full of this today. Unlike any era in the history of mankind, and that's a big statement. There is no known point in history where we have had so much information at our fingertips. That phone, anybody have a phone in the studio? We take them out so that they don't see, but I'm going to hold up one. Here's an iPhone. Do the work on this. I've done it. I've read this. I didn't do the study. But some years ago, during my lifetime, because I was born into an era where there was no PC, I watched the advent of the very first. I formed a lab to study the internet when it was still in Unix more than 30 years ago. This device would have cost $20 million a few years back, and it would have occupied a space many times larger than our studio just to embody the computing power. And yet you're carrying around. It is funny today because we live in the day of Google experts. Ask somebody a question, and even if they don't know anything, they can give you a plausible answer while they're quickly Googling it. I see it all the time. I'll talk to Google experts, and it makes me smile because you know they got that information right out of Wikipedia 2 minutes ago, but they make it sound as if they're an expert. And that's the power of having this device in your hand. Now, why is that critical? Because when it comes to budgets, we're all about information, but we're really short on wisdom. And so we gather data. I'm so sick of hearing about data. You say, wait a second, I thought you're a scientist in a laboratory. I don't think I'm a scientist. I think I'm a philosopher who uses science a little bit. They call it experimental philosophy. And secondly, no, I'm not all about data. I'm all about what I can do with data when it's properly harnessed, which is to gather wisdom. Data is more important when you think of it as behavioral traces, when you're looking for patterns. But I hear all these companies talking about their warehouses full of big data. And I think to myself, most of you don't even have your little data working. So it doesn't do you one bit of good to store all of that because you don't know how to find or extract wisdom from it. Well, everybody building a budget gets lots of information about cost and the marketplace and what competitors are spending and market share and all the other nonsense to build a business case. Not that some of that isn't necessary, but ultimately we still produce a budget that's short on wisdom and long on information. And I will now take that and break it down in this way. Let's imagine that you spend $100 on your media. I'm going to run out of space if I'm not careful here, Cliff, and I don't know if I need to pull this board my way or not, but we'll see. I'm also going to change markers because this one I don't like either. Someone may want to get another dark one. I'll go to blue right now and see if I can make these two work. They have a lot of markers. They do pre-test them, but these pens are designed to go dry. Another of businesses' attempts to get more revenue out of our pocket. All right, so here we go. $100 spend. Ready? Now you can obviously realize this is a symbolic number and you can put any number in your own spend in the place. With that $100 spend, you buy 100 visits. It could be 100 leads, okay? I'm going to use the word V, but if you're in the lead business, let's assume it was 100 leads. Now you've spent 100 and you've got 100. Now let's suppose that with those 100 visits, you convert one person at $50. So now you've converted one person and the cost is $50. And what does that mean? What does that look like? What are we trying to say? Well, it means this. For that, you got $50 and you spent 100, and now we have a little division problem. Can you help me see the division problem? Somebody tell me what the sum of that is. If I were to solve for 50 over 100, what is that? It is 0.5, 1/2. Now, everybody, I have a problem trying to teach this right now. Some of you know this instantly. You might even know where I'm going. Others of you know it vaguely, or it might even be intimidating. So I've got to keep it simple, but I've got to appeal to everyone. If you're a math whiz, just hang with me. If you are struggling to understand, I'll try really hard and use your Q&A to talk about it, okay? And Elad, that's a great quote, by the way. You can see Elad's quote, obviously, in the chat feature. So we spent $100. We got 100 people to click on an ad somewhere and come to our site, and one of them bought our $50 item. And so that means for the $100, we made 50, and our sort of overall sort of return is 0.5 on our money. Now, most of you know you can't sustain that. That means for every $100 you spend, you're going to gross 50. It's not a good model, but many people scale that way. Now we're going to step it up slightly, okay? And this is where it starts to get confusing. But let's make a couple of quick points first. What's my conversion rate? Somebody just look at this who does see the math, and I have two dials here. I have two conversion rates. What is my conversion rate on this spend to get traffic? I spent $100 and I got 100 visits. Let's just ask it differently. What did it cost me to get one visit? Somebody tell me. Okay? It cost me $1 to get one visit. Everybody understand that? You got that part right? All right. What's my conversion rate? Right here. So I had 100 visits. I got one purchase. What's my conversion rate? You can do the math in your head. That's right, Dave. It's 1%. 1 out of 100. Most of you know that really well. But for the few that don't, I'm going to put this down. 1%. Now, let's take the next piece, and I'll show you what happens. You say, I need more sales. So you decide to make a big change. I'm only going to make my change in orange. Everything else stays the same. So now you spend $500. Okay, mathematicians and marketers and interested philosophers, stay with me. The hardest thing I have to do is get the color of my markers right. All right, so here I go. Now, somebody tell me, if you keep that rate, how many visits are you buying when you spend $500? How many visits are you buying? Let me see in the chat, Cliff. How many visits are you buying? That's right, thank you, 500. So now you've got 500. All right. So you got 500 visits, but your conversion rate's going to stay the same. So how many conversions are we going to get? 5 customers. Remember how much would they spend? $50. And so now, what is my number going to look like to the right of this? Yeah, Cliff, that big screen helps. I'll put a $sign right here. I'd like to do this neater, but I'm doing the best that I can to get this clear. All right, good. All right, it is the same, but this time I put what? What's the top here? How much money did I make? I made 5 times 50, which is $250, and I spent 500, and let's not call this an ROI or anything. We don't even know what the cost of the product is. Let's just say that our quality ratio, our efficiency of our spend is still the same. Now, of course, you can go back and brag to your investors. We increased customers by 5-fold. You also lost a lot more money. And this is a formula many companies put up with for a long time before they cracked the code. So I'm going to take it a step deeper now, and hopefully you're going to start to see a pattern emerge. Are you all following me? Okay. Yeah, Doug says, what's a few decimals? Depends on who you are, right? All right, now let's go to the third illustration. At this point, we're going to focus on a different thing. I want to point out to everybody watching that this was called a more play. Let's spend more. Man, if I had more budget, I can get more customers. Some of you aren't losing that much, but maybe you're losing an acceptable piece. You're trying to buy your way in by a more play. But I want to move towards a quality play to illustrate why it's so important to use the heuristic that I've outlined, all right? So somebody says Netflix is still operating on this model. There's truth to some of this, all right? Now stay with me to the next piece. Here we go. Let me see. Yeah, so let's suppose that we go back to our $100. We don't spend any more. Let's suppose that if we don't spend any more, we're going to get the same result. Let's assume everything else stays the same. Okay, but let's suppose that we improve our conversion rate so that we get a different outcome. You improve it, and now you get 4 sales times $50. Now, this means you went to your funnel or you leveraged the value proposition and you produced more yeses, but you did that while holding your spin on everything else the same. We all know, for just a moment, we all know what that number is going to be, right? We now have made 4 times 50, right? And I'm running out of room to do this, and I think it's starting to show that I am in a pair of shorts. Cliff, do the best you can, but I got to get down here to do this. I'm just wearing shorts with my suit because I'm in Florida, and worse, I have on Zeros, sandals that are made for long distance runs. But take a look, here we go, 450. We have made $200, and we spent how much? How much did we spend, everybody? Somebody tell me. We spent 100. What is that ratio? Do the math. Tell me what that ratio is. No, that's not it. Keep going. What's the ratio? What's 100 into 200? It's just a piece of division. Let me ask you that way. What's 100 into 200? What's 100 into 200? All right. So think of it like this. 100 goes into 200 and we are at 2, but it's not a point. This was 0.5. This was 0.5. This was a half of 1%. Now we're at 2. What's just gone on here? Well, we have something magical's happening, and it's going to get more powerful when you see it next. So what we've done in this piece, I've done nothing. I've done it wrong. I've looked at my notes instead of just thought with you. Let me improve it. Let me go back slightly. All right, stay with me. 100, yeah, that's right, 450. No, everything's right. All right, I got to just keep going. So you see this? Would anybody agree that 2 is way better than 0.5? Does everybody see that? So we focused on better. I'm going to put a little B here, and that was powerful. We improved a step in our funnel. Now, I have 2 more very fast illustrations, and then it's all going to make sense. So here we go, 100. It's really easy to think it through, but to lay it all out real clear for you and to give you the right kind of illustration is a little bit different. I want to improve my ad. So I improve my ad, I get a bigger response. Spend $100, and what did I get from that $100, everybody? I got 400. Congratulations. We probably hired somebody like Dave or some of you on here to make our Facebook campaign work better. And we spent 100 and we got 400. Everything else the same. Conversion rate stays the same as the original. So with that kind of money, we got 4 sales, right? We got 4 sales times 50. And we all know what that yields is what? Somebody tell me. So this goes with above. I'm going to take this and just erase these to keep it easier. I'm just going to keep the ratios for the rest of these. All right. And that way you can compare those and I won't run out of room. So we had 0.5, 0.5, and we had 2. Now it's 4 times 50 is 200, right? And the spend was what? 100. What is 200 divided by 100? Everybody should know. Okay, it's 2. It's 2 again. 100 goes into 200 2 times. Now, I've done 2 different moves here. Think about it. In the first move, I went for better. Let's call that on the offer page. In the second move, I went for better in the ad. Now, it's obvious that when you get a conversion increase here, the money spent is more efficient. But sometimes we don't understand how all the pieces work together. And again, I'm making a simple illustration. If I were to show you how we do this in a complicated spreadsheet with complex spending, like I've done it with banks, with mortgage applications, and they hold some of the mortgages, and they sell some of the mortgages, and they calculate all of their cost. And when we got done doing this, it had profound impacts. They went for better instead of more, and they made an additional $117 million on a little program by just thinking about better instead of more. So I just want to point to you that if you're an enterprise level person with sophisticated math and teams, this still is important, and I'm trying to make a point for everybody in my audience, and it all gets clear in my final example. This is where I get excited. This is where I have seen magic happen. I was sitting with one of our new employees who's in a leadership and training program early this morning, and I was just walking him through it. And I said, when you get this right, it feels like you're a wizard. It really does. It's like magic what happens. So let's just go back to the fifth and final example, and I'll get away from math and into examples. I'll show you case studies, and I'll get more practical with you in just a moment, okay? All right, so here we go. This time, let's assume I approve both. So I'm going to spend only $100. Now contrast that up here. I got 5 sales, but I had to spend $500 to get them. And I only made $250. So basically, it took me 2 to 1. I'm losing a lot of money. Now, I've been working on the better piece. And so instead of spending more, I focused on better, and I saw a big increase. But what happens if you're really smart, you work backwards, and you do both of these? Here's what you see. I spent 100, but this time I got what we said before. Let me switch colors. I got 400 because I improved my conversion rate on my ad. Then let's assume that I went from that and improved my conversion rate in the same ratio that we did earlier. And so now the number is going to change. It's going to change suddenly, and I want you to understand that. I have 400 because of that improvement in conversion. But I have another improvement in conversion that will stack. And when it stacks, something magical happens. So this time it stacks, and I get that same conversion rate. Remember up here? Instead of, this is a 4% conversion rate. And this is 1%. This is 1%. This one produced 4 sales on $100. That's easy math. 4 out of 100. What is that? 4%. So let's go to 4% again, but it's 4% on 400. So I get 4 sales for every $100 I spend. So how many sales did I get? Somebody tell me. How many sales did I get? Right here, there's a number I've got to write on this page, and I want you to see if you're following with me. I got 4% on my $100 spend, so I got 400 new visits. But I got the same conversion rate, and so now I get 4% of the 400, and I get 16 visits. Whoa. Whoa. All right, 16 times 50. Mathematicians, 16 times 50 is what, 800? All right, so let's look at our math just a second. $800 on a spend of what? $100. What is my quality score now? The quality of my spend. Somebody tell me. What is it now? Pretty easy. 100 goes into 800. How many times? Here's old school. Take these 2 off, which means I can take these 2 off, divide 1 into 8, and I have not a considerable increase, not a really good increase, not even an amazing increase, a life-changing, transformative, dramatic increase. Hard to overstate it. You say, yeah, but does that work in real life? I know all the disclaimers. I know that more traffic might produce less conversions unless you get the same quality. I know all of those things because we've been doing this 30 years. But I see versions of this happening over and over again. And the reason it's happening is because we're thinking differently. Conversion is not an opportunity. Conversion is the sharp point of the marketing spear. The idea that conversion marketing is a separate discipline is a bunch of nonsense. Marketing that doesn't focus on conversion is less than useless. You say, wait, what about big institutional branding? You're still converting people. You're converting their thinking. You're wanting them to think differently about your brand or about your company. What I want you to understand right now is something so vital, because in a moment I'm going to switch back to that heuristic. I went from 0.5 to 8. What that looks like, I think I'm going to have to get on my knees to do this, Cliff, if that'll work, is I only spent $100. There's the more line. Up, I got to get lower up. You can't even see it down there. All right, so I'll have to, I'll do it to the right. I only spent $100. This line is 8 times this line. I have focused on the better over the more. This is better. Where's my green? And this is better. And the outcome is mathematically a piece of beauty. There is an elegance, a symmetry, and a beauty to marketing that's approached in the right way. We are not scientists. We are artists who use science. You say, no. I'm a data guy. Let me tell you something. If you're going to try to predict human behavior, you better use some art, because human beings have been defying our best abilities to predict their behavior for centuries. If it weren't that problem, you wouldn't have any great recessions and other things that happen all around us. And what I want to share to you or with you today is a new way to think by going back to this product funnel and ad. So switch there, keep this on the board and switch over. Now, what most of us do when we plan our budgets, and it stuns me. I mean this graciously, I'm not trying to be harsh, but I also believe in what I'm doing. I'm passionate and I want marketing to matter. And I'll tell you right now, I talk regularly to people who are spending $500,000 a month or $5 million a month or $50 million a month. I talked to one recently. They were spending, I think, $800,000 a month. And they wanted to improve their website, and they thought $40,000 was too much. Are you insane? You don't understand that you're spending your money in the wrong way. We end up on the far right. See, if you're looking at the slide, we end up on the far right. Go back to the slide, Cliff. The advertising piece, and we spend minimal dollars on getting that website to be a piece of psychological force, an art form. And less even on getting our value proposition articulated so clearly. Nothing's going to drive more revenue than your value proposition. And not just one. I'll talk about that in just a second. But understanding how to get all your value propositions right. Understanding how to stop thinking about web redesign. If you got bad plumbing in a house, painting it doesn't make the plumbing better. What you need to do is build a series of signal sets, beginning with, not later, not as an afterthought, not after agency submits their RFP and gives you lots of sexy designs, right away, pre-testing the new website with a funnel until you've got it mastered. And then you build your website around there. In fact, I'll show you, and I can tell you over and over again. I went to the Boston Globe one time. If you don't know this, they ran on my servers for many, many years. We effected a turnaround in the Boston Globe's financial picture. We did it by saying your value proposition is wrong going into the digital age. They had two sites, boston.com and the bostonglobe.com. One was paid, one was free. They couldn't figure out why people weren't buying the paid version. I realized it was a value proposition problem and that they were about to make the same mistake that your bosses might make or that you might make as a marketer. Never solve a product problem with marketing. Never solve a product problem with marketing. I'm going to say it a third time. Never solve a product problem with marketing. Screaming louder is not going to help your case very much. Make sure you have something to say before you say anything at all. So my point is this. I said we can use optimization, pre-test the funnel while we work on the value prop. We'll make a few $1 million, that's all. But that'll pay for everything you want to do on the website and the value prop testing. And that's promptly what we did. If you're paying for your websites out of your regular budget, you're making a mistake. You can pay for that out of found money. Do you hear me? You can pay for a new website completely out of found money, but it's not going to happen if you do an RFP, call in agencies, and have an internal debate about which design is most appealing. What's going to happen if you do it right is you're going to let the market tell you how to construct a funnel through a smart testing and hypothesis system that will not only pay for the website, but will pay for years in the dividend that comes from an increased conversion rate. So I want to say to you that the main thing I'm trying to teach in this point is there is a triple impact when you get this right. When you spin the opposite direction of everyone else, don't put all your money into advertising. You take your money and you get it into the value prop. That's the most important thing. And into the most carefully engineered funnel. With those two pieces, you can spend way more on your advertising. Because the more you spend there, there's an efficiency spend. Now I'm going to tell you right now. Here's what I do when I'm helping a startup. I don't know that 8 is the number, okay? But let's suppose they start at 0.5 and I can get them to break even. That may be important. Let's suppose we get them to just 2. But the minute I get 2, that means you're making $2 gross for every $1 you spend. If that math works, you only have 2 questions. How long does it take me to make that 2? Is it instantly? Do I make a sale on the spot? Or is there a long conversion cycle in the sell process? If it takes 3 months to convert them, you need 3 months of ad money in the bank. 4. But by the 3rd month, you've doubled the money you spend. And so then you come over here and you change this 100 into 10,000. You increase it over and over again, but not before you don't forget the ROI. We all get lost in ROI, and mostly, listen, profit is an opinion, cash is a fact. Get the cash right. You know why Jeff Bezos scaled Amazon? If you get under the hood, if you go deeply, deeply under the hood, you'll find out that he built a cash generation machine long before he was profitable. That's why he didn't run out of money. Yes, he raised money, lots of it. But there was an ingenious way he found the cash he needed to keep scaling the business. We are doing it wrong. And I'm trying to get through to marketers everywhere. I sit in the rooms of these board meetings and I want to take a nail gun and shoot myself in the head. What's wrong with us? It's just easier to spend more. And we're inoculated into a culture whose philosophy is bigger, better, more. But better is bigger. Better isn't higher quality. Better is bigger. Oops. I'm about ready to turn on the sensors with what I was going to say. Let's just say that's wrong thinking. Really wrong. So what you need to do is get this number up to 2 and then spend all you want right here. Unlimited. You should not have a marketing budget. Do you hear me? You don't need a media budget. You need a media investment. First, you should have a testing piece. And every media budget should spend 5% at least of the media budget on testing. That's very conservative. If that's not enough, spend 20, because you're going to waste more than 25. Take 5%. If you're spending $100,000 a month, spend 5 at least on testing. Frankly, I'd spend more when my budget's small. You need $10,000 to $20,000. Get it right. Get that efficiency to 2. Make sure it stays at 2. And then spend. You should not spend money on media. You should invest money against a ratio that guarantees you sufficient quality to give you an unlimited budget. More importantly than that, when it comes time to build a website, pre-test the most important paths, and I'll teach how to do this. Make certain you got a conversion lift before you launch the site, because you know that when you launch a site, you're going to launch it with the results of your test and a funnel that's guaranteed to improve conversion. And if you do it right, you'll have all the money in your hand before you build. I've called up my friends who are CEOs and they say, I want to build a new website. And I've said, well, how are you going to approach it? And I start laughing, because we're buddies. And I'll start laughing at them. And we'll laugh together, and then I'll just say, look, do this. And you don't need this in your budget. It doesn't have to be in your budget. You'll make all this money in the first quarter. Then build any website you want. Build one twice as good as you were going to. Take the difference and reinvest it somewhere else. But don't do it the way you're about to do it, because you're just going to lose money. You won't even know when you launch the site if your conversion is going to go up. You'll just be guessing and hoping. What's wrong with this picture? Does Boeing design an airplane this way? Do we say, hey, let's get some focus groups and see if they think this thing will fly? Let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion. All right. Are you following with me? If you are, I'm going to show you a real example, because many of you, I had to do this to get to the point, which is spend. Look at the shift to the side, Cliff. Spend from left to right, not from right to left. Focus on getting left to right correct, then scale up advertising. This is doable in an information age where we can measure enough, not everything, but enough to get to a quality that makes sense. Now, there's way more to budgeting than this, and I want to teach more about this going forward. I'm just giving you the first idea in the first of these series, and I'm going to illustrate that now by taking you to the case study that we looked at in the beginning. Test protocol 1214. These guys needed leads. How many of you need leads? Could be leads. We've done it with subscriptions. We've certainly done it with e-commerce. But they needed leads. They had a paid search ad. We worked simultaneously on all of these. Instead of saying, let's spend more money on paid search. By the way, the agency business, and a third of my students are agencies, I'm not against you. But I am against the spending model that says the more you spend, the more we make. That's stupid. Why would I pay you an X% of my spend and then ask you how much to spend? That's like asking the fox how many chickens are in the coop. And he tells you 3 because he's eaten 2 and he's got 1 plant. It's ridiculous. Don't follow the kind of classic structure in your relationship with an agency. Don't give a percentage of spend. There's nothing about quality, nothing about efficiency, and nothing to your own credit there. Come back to me now. So our goal was just to drop something different here in this ad. And you're going to think, well, you want to see a conversion lift. No, I want to see more people. All I want is more people to come to a page that I'm going to get more yeses from. So we did. These are all treatments, all tested. What do we see? If you know MECLABS methodology, you can explain why this worked, because that is a piece of science that I've taught over and over again. See the quantifiable statements? There's so much in there. We're helping you draw conclusions as opposed to making claims. And but all these we design. So here we go. Boom. Now, that produces an income. And listen, you're going to think, wow, big deal. Yep, me too. Just 21%. Seems just. And a paid search ad, that's great. But still, 21%. Why does that matter? Because the triple hit's about to come. Now, we're not just doing that at the same time. So that's the advertising. But we actually worked beforehand to improve a landing page and the final call to action that generated a very, very qualified lead. You can see by all the form fields, it required a high motivation to even complete it. So, where's the conversion lifts for those? If you don't know them, I know them by heart, so I can give them to you. We increased conversion on that offer page, the middle piece, by 54%. We increased conversion on that form, do you see the form? By 97%. Wait to think about that. That means almost twice as many, well, think how many more people filled out that form and completed it. Then we got backwards. So think about what's really going on here. If the best way I can do it is show you like this. I want you to see this real quick so that I can help you get the whole picture. Now, this case study is in our How to Model Your Customer Mind. You can learn that. It's free. It's not even it's just there for you to help you. It's thousands of experiments drawn, pulled together to put a few of the most important ones to show you how the methodology works. And I don't even know that it's part of this download. Somebody tell them where to find it. I'm just sharing that with you to say there's tons of examples. I'm just picking one. But I'm going to do it like this in my last few minutes. Stay with me. Here's the paid search ad. We'll let this box represent it. Here's the landing page. We'll let this longer. And then here's the form that needs to be filled out. We'll let this represent the form. Now, ultimately, a 21% lift here gets more people to look at this page. But at the same time, we're getting 54% more to go to the next page. But that's not enough. At the same time, we're getting 97% more of the people who get to this page to complete the form. Now, when you start going backwards, it's really hard to do the math and figure it all out, but we did it. Worked with him for a year on this. Not on this, but in other things. So we got to track it and see it actually happen. What really went down was these numbers start to add up in the ways that makes financial math magic. And that's how you saw a 272% increase in conversion, 268% more revenue, and 66% in cost reduction. More importantly, a 4x increase in margin, 302%. Now, I am sharing that with you because I want you to understand that it's not enough for you to get on here and listen to me talk about how to get a headline right. Oh, that's cool. This is how to model your customer's mind. I'm sharing it with you because there's 60 pages of these examples. Get it, it's free. And it'll show you how to work on all aspects. Take me to the New York Times one. They were showing it to me before this class, and I've just picked out the New York Times. So they're going to scroll down to it. Last thing I'm going to show you before I'm done. In the meantime, I hope today is helping you in a different kind of way. And I want to talk about that, and we're almost done. Are you down in the New York Times? Yeah, multi-step subscription funnel. See the control? 2. See the treatment? It's more. That seems crazy. And this is an illustration, but go down to the bottom line. Scroll down to the next piece. Oh, wait. Is that the same one? Go all the way up. Where's the conversion increase? There it is. 1,600 sales letter reads captured. And what's the overall increase? Each of these are adding up. Keep going. Just keep going. Slide down. Other way. Here's another one, PR Newswire. And look at that, 202%. All of this only matters in the context of this broader picture that's associated with this heuristic that we're trying to teach you. If you do this right and get your quality up, you can scale the other end. Let's stop right there. Take me back to I can see the chat features, pull up the heuristic on my final side, and I will tell you I have another point, which we're going to get into next week, and that is, Cliff, you can show them the point. Use these first 2 points that I've made to prioritize your marketing activities, and I'm going to talk to you precisely how to prioritize it in each category, like what you should be doing with your value prop. I'll give you a hint of that right now. Take a look at this slide. These are the 4 types of value props. If you don't harmonize them, you're losing money. And we can talk more about that. You can see more of that in the future, but you've got to know how to harmonize the 4 types. We'll talk about all of that. Go back to the heuristic, Cliff, if you would. And what I want you to see is that in the next couple of weeks, we're going to tell you how to design a web project so it doesn't cost you anything, how to get value out of it, how to get your value proposition proper, and thus use it as a force multiplier on everything else you do. There's nothing you should be doing more importantly than getting your value prop just right. Nothing. Nothing. If your value prop is strong enough, you'll never need to market at all. Just tell people what you've got and they'll come get it. I can give you thousands of examples. Value prop's the most important thing you have on your plate. It's the most strategic thing you can do. It's the compass of your business. And our work in that area, 10,000 plus experiments just on that. It's probably the most powerful thing we've ever discovered. Now, I'm out of time. I want to ask my audience, I need feedback, team, because I went through all this math. Is this helping you? Is this making sense? Let me see the chat so I can see people coming in. I need to get your thinking about today, because I think it'll help me adjust for what I do next week. Now, next week, I won't go over all this again. I won't be able to justify why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'll get right into what do you do about these 3 components in the heuristic. And I want you to keep thinking with me. Help us get better. Ask us the right questions. Make certain that the entire community who are learning to think in this new way and create meaning with their work are benefiting from the way we're working together. It is, at some point, you might come away and say, well, that's simple. We all know this. But nobody's spending their money in a priority that matches what we say we know. Hence the problem. I guess it's possible to know some truths in different levels. We need to get this one deeper into our thinking and rethink budgets. You can't separate expenses from investments until you know what is a cost you can't recover and what is a cost you should recover. For instance, I may not recover the cost of my testing until I get the right result from that test. But every dollar I spend on advertising afterwards should be an investment. Knowing how to separate the expenses from the investments and how much testing will it take in order to pay for itself. All of those are the factors that weigh in when you determine how you determine the way you spend money. I am out of time. I hope you're getting help. I hope that we can all teach each other. I appreciate you joining us today, and I'll be back next week with more.